couldn't quite figure out what was wrong. I kept going to my internist. He sent me for tests. I even went to Mayo for a series of tests. No one could seem to figure out what the problem was. Finally, I had a conversation with Dr. Schiffman, and he introduced me to Dr. Mega, and they discovered that I indeed had bladder cancer, quite advanced bladder cancer. In fact, you know, I was headed off into the wilderness of some serious problems.
I was on a family cruise with 4 of my family members, and I had chosen to have a deep tissue massage the last day of my trip. And then when I returned home on a Friday, I had a searing back pain. And when I went to my PCP, I found out I had 2 cracked ribs. So then I was sent for a chest x-ray, and it was determined at that point that I had multiple inoperable tumors in both lungs, and that the cancer had also spread to my bones, my liver, and to my brain.
Getting a cancer diagnosis for me was just incredibly traumatic. I mean, here I am in 09 in September, healthy, happy, jumping around in ruins, and a month later I find out I have cancer. It's hard to believe how that hits you. It's almost like you're watching it happen to somebody else.
I have a specific mutation, EGFR, which it caused the cancer in the first place. At some point something mutated, but that also enabled me to receive a targeted therapy, which of course at that point I knew nothing about.
When we approach a patient for targeted therapy, most of the time they've had standard treatment and their cancer is growing, and they're often without options and they're quite sick. What we do is we first have them sign a consent form that gives us permission to take any tumor tissue that has been stored, to analyze all the genes within their cancer to see if we can find a target for which there's a drug available. Then we try to match that abnormal gene to the drug.
We're always so happy when we find these mutations and we can give patients a drug that targets them. But pretty much a lot of the mutations that we found now, the cancer can get smarter than the drugs that we're using, and they can find new switches to turn on.
I met Mr. Whitmore in 2009. He had a type of tumor called a gastrointestinal stromal tumor. We've had Ron on a specific targeted treatment called Gleevec. Ron is a dramatic example of how targeted therapy can be effective. By putting patients on a drug that blocks the gene, it has blocked the cancer from growing back.
I truly believe that without these targeted therapies, I wouldn't be here today. And without these targeted therapies, other people won't be here tomorrow.
One of the limitations of targeted therapy is it relies on finding a single gene and having a drug for that gene. But if we don't have that right now, we need something else to treat cancer. So what we're now doing is we are trying to harness the power of the immune system to fight cancer. And that's what Mr. Mandel is on.
They say in the scans I've had since then, and I've had 3 scans, that I'm clear. Of course, you know, there's still cancer cells rumbling around in my body, but you know, they're being stopped right where they are. So I'm very pleased. It's remarkable. It apparently works with other forms of cancer, and I'm in a group that's being tested for its effect on bladder cancer. I'm a very lucky person.
These are the kinds of treatments that we're hoping for all types of cancer and all types of lung cancer, that we can find these specific things that are turning cancers on, that we can use targeted drugs for to turn them off and help people to live a long time with their cancer and potentially even, hopefully, maybe cure their cancers. But that takes a lot of research and a lot of money to do those types of studies where we find those mutations and find drugs that can target them. So that's one of the reasons that we really have to raise money for this. It's so important, it's so critically important for our patients.
I'm afraid that the day will come when there are no longer any more drugs. And I am dependent upon the scientific community and the willingness of people to fund programs, fund research. My future depends on that. And I picture the moment with Dr. Tabor, please excuse me, where we are sitting across from each other and we're sort of at that point and we're fine-tuning what else might happen. And I think that time may come if there aren't enough targeted therapies that are developed. And she and I will be sitting across from each other with my daughter and probably my entire family present, discussing how things may play out. So everything depends on continued therapies for me.